Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good time here, physically here at Latitude, as well as online, and I hope there are many streaming the session over here. So again, hello, I'm Marili. I'm from Karma Ventures, and here I'm trying to introduce you to our great speakers that we hope that are bringing some knowledge and understanding on some topics that we actually passionately cover at Karma Ventures. It's called Karma Academy. Initially, the kind of project or initiative, it started for our portfolio companies. So internally, we had sessions where we invited great speakers over to help our founders. We covered topics like sales, marketing, and recruiting, product, etc. And then at one point, we thought it would be actually good to bring this to a wider audience. Why not to share the knowledge? I think that's the best that in this community we can actually do. So this is Karma Academy. I'm inviting Margus Uudam from Karma Ventures on board together with Ahti Heinla. And we cover pretty interesting topic, I think. It's engineering, it's innovation, and it's egos. And how do you actually bring all these together, or can you even? So thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm Margus from Karma Ventures. Ahti.
I am Ahti from Starship and Skype.
Actually, could you give a bit more background of yourself? Skype and Starship, big names, more substance to it.
Right, I can give a longer introduction. Longer introduction is that I'm a deeply technical person. My mother taught me how to program computers when I was 10 years old. And I've been writing code now for 38 years. I was a founding engineer of Skype. I designed the peer-to-peer network that Skype was using, and I've been part of a bunch of other startups also that you don't know of because they didn't get past the stage of thinking, what we might do to the stage that actually, this is world famous and this is really successful. And I co-founded Starship 6 years ago together with my Skype co-founder Janus Friis. And we are building delivery robots that deliver groceries and food to your doorstep in neighborhoods or in college campus.
So you are well known by Skype and Starship. And you also mentioned that there are some failures nobody knows about. So looking at your kind of experience before we jump into the topic, what you would say, what is the most influential experience for you so far in the career?
It's hard to pick out, one single thing, but there are a bunch of things to pick from. But I'll pick something that might surprise you. One experience was at Skype when we were already successful, because Skype got successful very quickly, unlike most startups that actually take a lot of work to get successful. And our service went down. And our service went down due to technical glitches, technical problems, and stayed down for, I think, about 48 hours or something like that. And at that time already, Skype had hundreds of engineers, but ultimately it went down because of a software bug. And the software bug was done by a person, and I did a code review on that code, and I didn't spot the bug. So it's a very personal experience, for me. Like millions of people actually, couldn't use our service because of my personal oversight. And I was, of course, during these 48 hours, I was instrumental in bringing the service back online, and I didn't sleep during these 48 hours. And we had lots of pizzas, and we had a war room, and it was like a very, very, very intense experience. So as an engineering leader, when stuff doesn't work, that's actually the most challenging part. That's where the biggest challenges are. It's maybe a little bit comparable to I asked an HR manager at some point what has been the most interesting time in your career, and the answer was that the time that she had to lay off a bunch of people in various places, because that's the most challenging thing to do, kind of, as an HR manager. So it's the happy stuff, right? Which building things. Bigger challenges actually are when things are not working. I've definitely had these experiences as well, because the path to success is actually very much includes these experiences, and it's almost never that you just like reality doesn't look in the way that you see in like when you go to a hardware store and buy like a screwdriver. It comes like in a box or something packaged, and there is this picture of somebody using a screwdriver, and you know how it looks. These pictures look like somebody's holding this screwdriver here and smiling like this, and turning something like that. That's not how real life works. We're actually using a screwdriver. It's actually like I can't get this working. That's how it really really is, and that's where the most challenges are. So I think that's my answer.
So one of the topics we covered during this Latitude as well, I led roundtable of mental resilience. And it is easy to say it's not always so. It is easier to be successful, but to fail, to have tough times, it's something that people usually don't prepare for. And when it happens, it might really hit you. What has been, just a quick hint on, what has been your strategy or tactics to handle difficult times? What is your mental resilience program? How do you go through it?
Yeah, there is this I think well-known quote that when Elon Musk had one of his accidents when one of the launches of SpaceX went really bad and had a big explosion and so forth, then somebody tried to comfort him, essentially saying that yeah, sure, like but I'm sure you learn a lot from this failure, and you emerge stronger and so forth. And his answer was that given the choice, I would rather learn from success. And that's of course true, but he persisted after that, obviously, and do you know how old company SpaceX is? SpaceX is, I think, 17 or 18 years old company. Mm-hmm. So he has persisted during this time. It obviously has been super long journey, and he knew it from the very start that it's going to be a very long journey. Like it's not that you are. It's like there are some people with a whiteboard and saying, oh, rocket, flames coming out there, and it's flying to the moon, right? And then next day it's like done. Of course, it's not like that, and he knew it's going to be a very long journey, I think like for me, I think it has been a little bit similar. Like it's not. When I founded Starship, I also knew it's going to be a long journey, and not as long as SpaceX. Starship is like 6 years old right now, but it's also we are building delivery robots, and we knew that from the point that there were two people with a whiteboard and drawing like, oh, robot, sidewalks, it can go, from A to B. Then it's not that we just hire a person next day, and then the 2 weeks later it's built and so forth. That we knew it's going to be a very long time to actually get this to working in practice, and we knew it's a marathon, just like Elon Musk probably knew it's a marathon, and he also knew that during this marathon he's going to fall down, but he knows that the finish line is still there. This fall is just a very small part of the whole journey. And for me also, like, how do I have energy building something for 6 years and more and more and more and more and so forth, like without getting tired? It's the same, that I have the goal in my mind. I knew from the very start that it's not going to be a sprint. So I think there were also actually people joining Starship who were more like with the mentality that, startups, let's do really quickly. This is a sprint. We'll get major success very quickly, right, and so forth. And if things actually turn out to be harder a little bit, then it becomes actually very hard to motivate yourself if you think that if your expectations were different. But if your expectations are that it's going to be a long journey, but we are going to win because of X, Y, Z, and we track a little bit, where the competitors are, and the competitors are always behind us, regardless of whatever challenge, we might have. The competitors apparently have the same challenges, or they seem to have bigger challenges because they're kind of falling behind. And the big goal is still there. And if you know that, that's what you have to think of. And I'm sure I have engineering background, and I work primarily with the teams and with products that are highly technical in nature, which essentially require a big engineering component to it. So almost like by definition, this is not that it works like that, or like it's a longer development process, which is unpredictable. Sometimes it doesn't work out always the way you think. Invariably, actually, things in reality are harder than you think in the beginning. But if you have the goal in mind and you have the expectation that it's not going to be super quick, then it can work out, or at least has worked out for me.
So the kind of long-term goal brings you always back to track, and then to have it in a right expectations, to have right expectations.
Yeah, I would say, if every startup kind of, okay, you can have lots of hardships and so forth, but there's light in the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
But if you have some particular hardship, then that light in the end of the tunnel gets more distant. It kind of goes a little bit farther, but you still see that there's light there.
There's still light, right?
Exactly, and the way out of the tunnel is still forward. I mean, it's not that it's suddenly up, down, or like laying down and say I'm not doing anything. It's still like you have to move forward.
Great. So now moving to topic of innovation, engineers, and egos. So there are great startups, great ideas, great technologies. Sometimes the ideas have come from founders. They set up the team, and your talented engineers start to tweak the ideas or come up with new ones. And then there are a bunch of startups who are like good ideas, nothing specific, but trying hard and make it successful. There are some who are really looking for ideas and looking like how to be unique. So we discussed the topic with Ahti a bit, and for Ahti, for you, the innovation seemed a bit lame term. So what if we define innovation in your way first? What is real innovation for you?
Right. Yeah, I don't like the term innovation, because I think it's a super overused word, and then you don't know what people mean by it. But I would say, yeah, I've been part of mostly the teams where do a lot of technical innovation, a lot of technology innovation, or let's say deep tech, and I would define this part of startup building as something where the technical challenge is big enough that you need to take that into account when planning the life cycle of your startup or your capital raising cycles, or or things like that. Where essentially, again, bring an example from Starship, is like Starship started out in a way that one of the thoughts very early on was for example that okay, me and Janus who founded this, that okay, which of us is going to be the CEO? I didn't really want to be a CEO. I thought I could be the CTO, but we thought that okay, actually we have so big of a technical challenge to do, yep, that initially the role of the CEO is very similar to actually the role of CTO, because most of the team is actually going to be engineers, and that's how actually I ended up being the founding CEO of Starship, and we had during the first, I would say, a year and a half in Starship, 90 or 95% of the team were engineers. So that puts things a little bit into perspective. Like we were also stealth, so we didn't talk about publicly what we are doing, which means we weren't doing any marketing, for example. We obviously were not like selling our product. We were doing engineering. So that's what I think deep tech is like. A lot of startups is not like that. A lot of startups is essentially that you start with marketing essentially on day one, essentially, and then you just essentially figure that you get the technology development done in parallel with all of the different activities. So that's not deep tech for me. Deep tech is essentially when you need to take the engineering timeline into account when planning the life cycle of your whole startup.
And the idea of Starship, there is actually a pre-story to it. You followed your passion built robots for NASA's competition that could land on unknown planet and move around and pick up stuff and so on.
I would say this wasn't the inspiration for Starship, but it was a prerequisite for Starship because in my time before founding Starship, I had been taking part in a couple of robotics competitions, and these taught me how to build robots. And I had some working knowledge and understanding approximately what does it take to build a robot of approximately this size that moves with, approximately pedestrian speed. And when me and Janus started jotting down some ideas that, okay, what could we do with robots? And we realized that automation of deliveries is a big opportunity. Then we realized that, but this actually requires a robot of approximately this size, moving with approximately pedestrian speed, needs to be low cost, and so forth. So that's actually, these attributes are, exactly the attributes of the robots that I had been building before. So I technically approximately knew what it takes. I could do a back of the napkin calculation. I think we didn't have a napkin, but still we had these calculations of approximately, what the unit economics will look like, because unit economics is everything in logistics, and that's a clear part of that is that, okay, how much the robot would cost. So I had this working knowledge. I knew approximately what engineers approximately do I need to hire. Because I had the previous experience of building robots as a hobby, essentially, for these robot competitions.
So the early stage in deep tech or innovative startup, the key question might be, how do you build a culture that's highly innovative? And it might be slightly easier for you. Join Ahti's team, like everybody knows you. But for example, for a founder who is not well known yet, who is doing his or her first startup and would like to attract engineers, how do you build, and you might not get the best ones first. So what is a very early stage of the culture you need to build to keep the innovation going, to keep the standards high? How to do it?
I would say you need to get the best ones first. So it's hard to.
Is it so that don't do it if you don't get best?
No.
Okay.
Not,
there is some hope still.
Not that simple. Yes, I would say yes. You need to get the best ones first. But even if you don't, you still have a chance. But I think you don't need to be well known in order to be great at inspiring people. Because if you have a big vision and you know that it's going to be a marathon and it's not going to be very, very quick, then you need to inspire people and make them see this light in the end of the tunnel. And you need to be able to show them that this light is actually very bright. It might actually be fairly small because the tunnel is very long that you need to go, but the light is very bright, and that's what you're going for. And you need to tell this story. And for deep tech, you need to tell this story to engineers. You need to motivate them and inspire them. This is critical, absolutely critical, that you need to inspire great people. It's maybe easier said than done, and there's certain characteristics to it. It's easier if you're well known, because then people can have this line of thought that okay, yes, I'm going to follow this person who has done it before and has had success before, but you can also do it without. If you are an inspiring personality, you can also do it without. And I think also a lot of investors invest in the teams, and they invest in also the ability for people to attract other people. So, for example, let's say a person who is I think relatively known right now, like Hardy Maybaum, who was a VC at Matrix and founder of GrabCAD, for example. I was an angel investor in GrabCAD. So why did I invest in GrabCAD? tons of different reasons, but I met Hardy Maybound the first time, and he was able to explain me in like a couple of minutes what they are doing, why is this valuable, and made me feel that, okay, this person really, pulls this together. This person really can inspire people and can attract people and move fast. And just, by the way that he spoke. And I didn't know him before. Like, he wasn't well known before, but you can still do it.
And from your own perspective, do you see that in your early days you were like equally inspiring as now? You had to learn it over the kind of years. Is there a chance for me, if I'm not that inspiring, but I know that I have to be, I can become more inspiring? What's your journey tells you? Is there hope for a person who considers him or herself yet not inspiring?
Yeah, I think the talent might definitely be inside you, even if your role isn't about inspiring other people, and and you do not have massive experience, in it. I don't think I don't think people would have called me a very inspiring person 20 years ago. I don't think so. I don't think so at all, actually. I'm a fairly introverted person. I don't like to go around and just grab people and start telling them stuff and so forth and so forth. It isn't in my that isn't what isn't the ideal day for me. Well, I have actually a classmate of mine, Peter Mõtsküla, sitting here. So he knows me for how much, more than 30 years right now. I don't think I was a very inspiring classmate. I don't think so. Like,
any comments?
Raise your hand if you agree.
Well, inspiring, that depends again to whom. You were a well-respected geek. Because our class was full of sort of geeks.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't have a microphone, so other people, a lot of people listening to that don't hear you. But I'm just going to repeat, for the microphone that Peter gave a very diplomatic answer, saying that I was a very respected person in the class. But that probably actually proves my point, that he didn't say that I was a very inspiring person. So I don't think I was. Like, it all starts with the deep conviction in your own head that what you're doing is going to work for X, Y, Z. And there's a lot of detractors out there. Well, not detractors. There's a lot of people out there who think that, there's so many risks, or this doesn't really work, or this is a low chance that this is going to work. But it's easy to say that, I'm skeptical, maybe this doesn't work. But if you are able to overturn every reason, then you became convinced yourself that you can overcome this. Like with Starship, when in the early days of Starship, I went to New York to demo, my robot. And I landed in I think JFK Airport. I had a robot in my luggage in a big box. And the customs officer asked that, what is this big box? What are you bringing to United States of America? And I opened the box and I explained that, okay, this is a robot. This is a sidewalk robot. And he looked at me and said, dude, this is New York. This is going to get stolen in a minute in New York, in the sidewalks of New York. So there were actually a lot of people who thought that, these robots are going to get stolen, right? We have driven more than 1 million kilometers with our robots. So far, we haven't had any robot stolen. And it's actually like, if you can get convinced very easily by doing a few experiments. You can put the robot out there and leave it there for a couple of hours, or drive around the block or something like that, and just count how many robots are going to get stolen. And if your answer is 0, then you can get convinced that this customs officer can tell whatever he wants. And that's the first reaction of a person. And we had so many people tell us that these robots are going to get stolen. So many VCs asked that early on. But nowadays, when I meet with VCs, they don't ask that question because they have also become convinced from practice that this risk actually is not there. So you can prove it yourself with data, with like rational thought that this risk is not there, even though a lot of people might think that is there.
So when we prepared for this this talk, so one thing you said, it's actually very important what is the engineering team structure, and also how to change it over time. So maybe combining now the structure of the team, organizational structure of the team, and how it changed over time, and maybe also to how the culture is changing over time. You have seen early stage culture in Skype, and definitely changing a lot over time. And I think Starship in very early days was also somewhat different than right now it is. So what's your take on the structure and then how the culture in parallel is changing, and what you need to do proactively for that?
Yeah, I would say that there are two processes that I would immediately outline in this. One thing there is the maturing of a team or maturing of the company. Very early on, the ideas are very nebulous. It's like this bright light in the end of the tunnel, and it's so bright and so forth. And nobody really knows how far it is or what you exactly need to do to get there. But the brightness of the light is the thing that inspires people. That it's a big opportunity. We are uniquely positioned to do this. This is super cool. This will change the world, even though it could be a long way there. But later on, let's say your startup is already several years old. It's not so much that the brightness of it's still also the brightness of the light, but then also people put it immediately in the context that what was our revenue yesterday or something like that. Okay, the light could be very bright, but we had some challenges yesterday. For example, we didn't have much revenue yesterday, for example. So it's different. It's not just like abstract nebulous ideas, but it's more about specific numbers and how to get them better. So over time, things obviously they get more structured, more systematized. Also inspiring people gets different. It's about specific numbers. That okay, we are here, and our growth curve approximately is here. We are improving whatever metric by 3x per year or 30% per month or something like that, and that's probably if you keep up that trajectory, that's where you're going to end up. And people say, okay, so that means right now we are here, but okay, next year we are actually going to be here. And that could be inspiring to people, and it's not just we have a really bright light somewhere. The other process I would say is that in deeply technical teams. In the beginning, you need you need a few great engineers. And the biggest thing there is their ability to contribute as individual contributors. Over time, as this team grows, you need more organization. You need to build structures for different teams. These teams need leaders. There's a little bit of an organization, of a hierarchy, goals, and so forth and so forth. So you start needing to do significant work in managing the team, not just in the individual contributor engineering work. So who are your engineering managers? Very much the most natural engineering managers would be the people who started in the team as individual contributors. So you have this process of an individual contributor engineer becoming a team lead and becoming a manager. And some engineers just don't have any interest in management. Some do, and some do and are actually talented in it. So that's the good scenario. Some do, but actually are not talented in it. So that's a bad scenario. Then you actually have a person who wants to get into a role that they're not actually suited for. And also, engineers typically who haven't done management before, think about management often in a way which is far from reality. The thing is, a lot of engineering work, for example, software engineering in particular, is like, my friend and also classmate, Jan Tallinn, who was also founding engineer of Skype, he, I think, at some point, expressed this in a way that it's like, suppose, you learn how to like play piano, you become like an entry-level piano player. And there's a lot of learning you need to do to get to better. You can always get better. Software engineering, even though you can get better, then when you have learned some of the basic aspects of how to do programming, you can essentially self-learn, a lot of the rest within the next year or something like that if you are talented. Of course, experience does bring something, but it doesn't turn you to a completely different person with a completely different abilities. You can be a great engineer with having just 1 year of professional experience, but you can be super talented and you can be a great asset to a team. Whereas in management, that's actually not typically how it works. If you are a manager having had management experience for 1 year, it's almost certain that you are, even though you might be talented, you don't have enough experience to be a really great manager. It takes a lot of experience. So it's a different, it's a different sort of growth curve. And individual contributor engineers often come from this background that, like I can do everything in terms of engineering. Now, I become a team lead or manager, and I can do everything in the team leading. But it doesn't go this way. You start as a sort of like an entry-level manager, and it's a constant learning to get to better, before you actually become a good manager. And if you, as a beginning manager, you are not aware of that, and you think that, it's just going to be there. I'm just, maybe I'm just talented, or it's just like a tick box that, okay, I now have a manager. I can change my title in LinkedIn, right? But you're actually a very entry-level manager at that point. And if you don't know that, then you actually get to the same thing, that you thought it's a sprint, but it's actually a marathon. But if you know it's a marathon, if you know that you're now an entry-level manager, and you seek out that, okay, what are the things that I need to learn about management? Should I enter a mentorship program in our company to learn about management, for example? Should I ask my manager what are the next things I should be learning? If I think about these things, then you become better. So that's the process that, as a leader of an engineering organization, you need to be aware of that. What are the stages that various people in your organization are at, and how to develop them to develop the organization that builds this technology.
But one of the tricky questions in my experience has been also that when you have super incredible talented individual contributor, and then the person says, I'd like to become manager, and you see that the capability is not there or talent is not there to be manager, what you would do? Would you let him, her to become a manager, support, help to develop the talent, even, and then you lose this individual contributor? Or you try to motivate the person to stay on bringing more innovation, to the company and do what he's doing best?
Obviously, nobody has the crystal ball to say that, okay, this person cannot be a good manager. But you can also actually do these things step by step. Also, as an individual engineer, for example, it is possible to take on various coordination activities where you need to, instead of just doing very pure engineering work behind your computer, you actually need to somewhat organize other people, somewhat set goals, develop metrics for other teams or other people, and you can develop your abilities in this way, and you can then everybody actually sees who is good at it, who is not good at it. So I can bring an example from Starship. We have a team called Autonomous Driving Team, which is building the core technology for the autonomous driving part of the robots. contrary to the popular opinion, that's not the everything that Starship Engineering is doing. It's actually a minority part of what Starship Engineering is doing, but it's definitely one important part to make the robots drive autonomously. And this is technically a very complicated problem that has many different aspects. So it doesn't have, let's say, like a linear solution. It's a team of around 20 people where we have actually organized it in a way that while there is a team structure there and there are team leads and so forth, there's also coordinators for various topics. For example, we have a coordinator for specific scenarios where the robot meets a pedestrian. How does the robot get past the pedestrian? How does this interaction work and so forth? There's no team for that. There's no specific team, but there is a person who is essentially every day looking through the thousands of times the videos or images or data about what happened yesterday when the robot met the pedestrian, how did it go, develops dashboards, metrics on it, and coordinates other teams' work around this area. A little bit like very loosely, like a technical product management work a little bit. So this is a little bit like a stepping stone in autonomous driving team. People can try out a little bit what is it like to coordinate other people without actually being like a full management role. So I do not think things just in a way that, okay, you're an individual contributor, then you're a team lead, and then you're a manager of managers. These are sort of the big, big titles on LinkedIn, I would say. But the real world is actually more complicated. There's, fine-grained stuff and so forth. And if somebody, wants to be a manager, but I see that, okay, they actually don't have great qualities for that, for example, they can try it out and they will see it by themselves. And it's possible to discuss with them about these things, that what is going well, what is not going well. In the end, these things are about communication.
I so relate to what you said, that it's almost impossible to figure out if the person actually can be successful in a manager role or not. I was once CEO for about 1,000 people. I noticed my former boss sneaked into the room. So, and we tested all line managers, like the proper leadership test. And there was one guy where the HR company said, with this guy you can do everything, but never put him to manager role. And right now the guy has been successfully CEO for this 1,000 people unit for 5 years now. So even HR specialist cannot tell if you have talent for it or if you can develop talent for it. Now, coming back to the early days. So like you said, it's like 90-95% engineering team. And then what if, this talented team comes up with all kind of new solutions, great ideas, but who will check that they're potentially commercially valuable? And maybe later it's easier in the sense that there is, commercial team and what can we have customer feedback and then we can monetize this and we can monetize that. But there are always ideas popping up that are great, that are exciting, that might be super motivation for some of the engineering team, but no way to monetize it. Not practical, it doesn't make sense. How do you track it? How do you control it?
I would actually argue that it's easier at first because at first in the start of the startup there are fewer people and therefore there are fewer opinions.
Okay.
But in the very beginning, obviously it's the founders who are putting forward the main idea why we are doing this and the main proof point that we need to prove, or the main logic, the narrative of we do X, we do Y, we do Z, and then we have success, for example. So I think the story in the beginning is very simple. Yes, maybe the individual contributor engineers are typically maybe not doing that, or are not at least not their main role, even though they should be able to understand this narrative. But it's the role of the founders, I think, and the CEO to put forward this narrative and check that is this narrative still true? Are we progressing on this narrative? when things are more mature, yes, it's all of the stuff that you mentioned, metrics, different teams, revenue in one product, or if you have multiple products, then different things. And of course, yeah.
So founders have to have the kind of critical role of leaving behind the kind of building engineering excitement if it doesn't feel commercial, and have to stop it, have to control it, and then run the full guidance on product.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you realize that, if you as a founder realize that this is not working, and it becomes you really understand that, okay, it's not working, then I mean there's no question. I mean you do need to shut it down. Like if you really see that it's not working. Of course, maybe hard to get there because to get to that decision sometimes, because sometimes things are like borderline working, and then it's like, oh, okay, how does this work? Do we actually take the decision? But once you become convinced that this is not working, obviously tear it down the next day.
What comes to your mind first when you think about highly talented engineering teams and egos? There might be some, right?
There might be some, and I would actually say that highly talented teams, highly talented engineers, typically they speak the language of objective measures, and it's not about I'm this great engineer and I think we need to do X, and then there's another person who says I'm this great engineer and I think we need to do Y, and that these people are then somehow fighting each other or something like that. Typically, in my experience, it doesn't happen this way all that much in engineering.
It's a sign of that you potentially don't have very talented engineering team.
Yes,
Can I read it out
maybe,
like that?
maybe yes, maybe people have then too much egos, because the engineers typically are able to debate, using objective facts and objective, hypotheses. They can actually, they can debate between themselves, on the basis of that. Okay, I think we should do X, because of this reason, and because I believe, A. And if you say that, okay, I think we should do something else because I believe that A is not true, you can actually test whether A is true or not. And great engineers are great engineers because they follow these sorts of things. They don't go after like pipe dreams of things that they believe are true, even though they see that the facts are saying that they're not true. So I think it's not so much a problem of people, like big apes, saying like, "Wow, me, I want this." It's not so much like that. I think in mostly in engineering, but definitely the biggest problems are, in fact, they are people problems. They are not engineering problems. Actually, it's not technical problems. If you talk about deep tech, and if you ask me that, what are the biggest problems, it's not that the biggest challenges are that, okay, how do you solve this technical challenge or something like that? These are solvable. The biggest problems are the people problems, I would say, yes.
If I take your point that highly talented engineering team, the ego is not the problem, actually. They are very fact-based, number-based, and so on. If I take it further on, does it also mean that actually the positive recognition and reward doesn't work as well, because engineer knows him herself?
It does.
That was great.
Works.
I'm happy.
No.
How the kind of reward
I would say
comes
ego doesn't matter in engineering, but motivation matters a huge deal. People do their best work if they want to do this best work, and if they want to work on the problem. If they are constantly demotivated by other people around them, telling them that this is worthless, or you're not paying attention when they actually do great work, people do become demotivated. Absolutely. So just as a matter of terminology, I wouldn't call this ego. I think it's, everyone needs to have motivation. Ego, I would call, something which is like a little bit, beyond motivation. It's like self-centeredness, or it's something that, it's not that I want to be part of the team, doing some great work, but I want to ignore other people. This is ego in my mind. But everybody needs to have motivation, and as a founder, I think you need to be aware of the inspiring other people, of your employees, and also making sure that they're motivated to work on this. So this is 100% a very important part.
So is a kind of positive feedback, reward, recognition, something that's natural to give for you as a leader as well to your team? In our region, when men, marry wives and they say once, I love you, and I let you know when something changes. So how is the kind of communication and positive feedback and all that happens naturally to, particularly in our region?
Well, you brought up marriage and romantic relationships. Like these work often also in the way that in the beginning it's all like butterflies and so forth and so forth. But as things go on, things change a little bit, and also then that's also the part when you need to think a little bit that does this other person still want to be with me, and why, and am I still a good partner for them? And in the same way as founder and as manager, you actually I think need to think that in the very beginning I inspired this person and told about this bright light, and they see that bright light. I see that. They see that. They're working, towards this, together with me. But after a while, actually, you need to have that check. I think that is the mindset still the same, or has it changed? Maybe they need a bit different sort of attention now. The company is constantly evolving. The motivation of the person is constantly evolving. Like I said, people join because of vision and the company, and they leave because of their bad boss. So you need to make sure that you are not the bad boss.
So our time is up, and I find this talk to be full of like ideas and thoughts that at least I didn't think in that way before, particularly egos, high talented teams. I kind of had imagination there is more of it, but also tips on mental resilience and early stage innovation. So are there any questions from the audience? Maybe we can still take one or two if there is one maximum. Okay. Is there anything you'd like to ask? Yes.
How do you deal with a teammate, a colleague, maybe a founder who you personally don't get along with? Perhaps you need this person, perhaps you don't. But how do you even approach personal relationship problem in the company?
Should I repeat the question?
Yep.
Yeah. The question was that how do you deal with a co-founder or teammate that you personally, on a personal level, don't get along with? I think I have a very easy answer to the first part. If you yourself are a founder and you have a co-founder that you don't personally get along with, you have a big problem, and that's maybe actually a reason for shutting down a startup. That is super important that the founding team is aligned and behind the same thing and is able to agree within each other. I think there's no silver bullets, with it. That just interpersonal skills of getting to the same page and understanding when you are on the same page and when you're not is super important. But a little bit of the same skills, of course, are with a teammate. If it's a teammate or employee that you do not get along with, it doesn't mean maybe you should shut down the startup or leave the company, but definitely it's something that if you don't address this, then it starts to affect your motivation, the other person's motivation, the motivation of people around you, and you could move to working in different departments or something like that. That you don't need to interact all that much. But often it's also about If somebody is a person who constantly gets into fights with other people and constantly gets into positions where other people don't want working with them, there could be some hard choices made then.
Thank you so much, Ahti. Big applause to Ahti.